With Metro by T-Mobile, your hard-earned money goes further. This tax season, there's zero fees to switch. Enjoy Metro's lowest price, just $25 a line for 4 lines. Plus, get 4 free Samsung Galaxy phones when you switch. Now that's the best deal in wireless. Metro by T-Mobile, empowering you to rule your day. All lines lose promo rate if any deactivates. No fees on select phones. Limit 1 per line with eligible port. Excludes sales tax. Limited time offer. Additional terms apply. See metrobytmobile.com.
Welcome into the Hoof Podcast. I am your host, Eric, and I got a little one-on-one for everybody tonight. I'm itching to know the details of the draft that we're going to be talking about for the next month, and I want to get a head start. A lot of free agency moves this week, but just want to get everyone ready for the draft that's going to be coming up. Just get everybody introduced. So I'm bringing in Russell Brown from Cover One NFL Draft Podcast. He's been with Cover One for about 4 years. Also a radio guy at 1010 KXPS. Did I say that correctly?
It's kind of a tongue twister.
Okay, I was wondering. I know, I was like, is it 1010? 10, but then he has radio guy 1010, KXPS. So yeah, sounds good. So how's it going, Russ? Thanks for joining.
Yeah, man, appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. Things are well. We got about a month until the draft, a little over a month, and free agency kicked off today, 4:00, and we've had tampering for the last 2-3 days. So, it's been good, man. It's been a lot of fun. Trying to catch up on everything, but just grinding the tape and following with prospects.
Yeah, this is definitely one of the more fun parts of the year. Is it more fun than the season? I think it's debatable. Getting ready for the draft is exciting for me. Obviously, it's exciting for you. So, it's not as monotonous, right? Because it is a short period.
I don't know. I do the draft year round, so for me, it's like for some guys, if you're just diving in, you might. I'm not saying you particularly, but some people, like the average Joe, might be a little bit overwhelmed just because. Yeah, there's a lot of prospects, but like I'm at the stage right now where it's like, man, I'm trying to finish up my draft guide and I'm trying to create some content for us over at Cover One, and I'm not necessarily getting into the newer prospects that I would like to get to know about, and I feel somewhat lost, but I've spent so much time trying to get to know the 120 players I've watched or whatever it is, and it's like, you know what, like I'm probably pretty good. Like I'll probably finish this up by April 1st, get the guide out there and all that stuff, and then I'll do some cleanup stuff at the end there. But no, it's I don't know. I'm not very overwhelmed with it. I'm just really excited. It's definitely different than just watching football weeks 1 through 17 and kind of having that fandom of being upset or extremely happy. And for Bills fans out there, it should be extremely happy because things are going in the right direction.
Correct. It's a great time to be a Bills fan. I say it every day. But, so when we're talking about like 7th round, do you know who's being picked in the 7th round? Like,
yeah, I
go?
sprinkle kind of all over the place. Like I don't try to watch every top tier guy. I try to watch a variety of things, and it really depends on how deep the position group is. Like if wide receiver's super deep, I might get to watch 20 guys. If the running back group is pretty deep, I might watch 12 to 15 guys. But I love watching offensive linemen and defensive linemen, so that group's typically deeper. Cornerbacks and safeties, so the defensive back group, I don't like watching as much. I don't know what it is. Just watching defensive backs is boring to me. And so I don't necessarily go as deep on those guys. And I normally, if I do, I go, again, probably closer to April when we get more into closer to the draft. And a lot of that was for the sake of the combine. I got burnt on certain guys in the past, like Tease Tabor and guys that just didn't test well. They didn't pan out in the league. So it was things like that. So every year I'd mix it up. I do a little bit different. And this year it's just been a little bit different because of the players that have opted out, the players that didn't play, and it's like I don't have tape on this year, and some of the tape on players in this year for particular teams has not come out yet, and it hasn't been released or hasn't been given. So it's like I can only form so much of an idea of what a player can do off the game film, off like a broadcast game. So it's really tough. That's why my list this year is a little bit more narrow than probably years prior. But yeah, I mean, I do know about most players in the draft. I've heard of them in some way, shape, or form. I have some type of an opinion on them. If I don't, I'd obviously say it. Like, we have a question later today about Greg Newsome out of Northwestern. I got some thoughts from the live viewing that I've watched of him, but I haven't watched him in depth yet because I don't have any Northwestern tape to watch of him. So it's just one of those things.
It makes scouting very difficult.
Right,
with no tape,
and I can't watch.
So would you go, real quick, are you more on athleticism? Are you more on kind of off the field stuff? I mean, because that's kind of what you got to dive deep into without any
it's
film out
technique
there.
And it's the technique that I see on the film and the athletic ability. If I don't have any film on a player whatsoever, I'm not going to form anything on him off of something I read off the field. Like, I could read something about a player and he could have a court case coming up in a couple of weeks. At the end of the day, I'm not in that courtroom. I'm not a part of that process. I'm not his agent. I'm not an NFL team getting to talk to him about those questions. So I can't form that thought or anything like that. I can't judge or base a grade off that. I have to go off the film. And if I don't have film, then I probably just won't watch that player in particular.
Interesting. And that's probably happening more than ever this year. Anyway, I want to get into some of these details on the basic storylines that are out there. So we're going to play a little fact or fiction. I'll put a statement out there. Just tell me if you think it's fact or you think it's fiction, and then throw some of that knowledge in there. So we're going to start out here. The Bills are picking 30th. We really want to talk about the Bills, but I think it's important to get up into the draft because the Bills are in a position now with the re-signings they have this week, that they can just sit back and take best available. So what happens in the front of the draft will impact the Bills. So I want to kick it off here with the first one. Trevor Lawrence is the best quarterback prospect since Andrew Luck. Fact?
That is fact. I truly think so. I know some people are probably going to say, no, that's not true, but I disagree. I think he's the definition of a franchise-altering quarterback. I think he navigates incredibly well in and out of the pocket. He does really well out of structure. He's just calm, cool, collected. Everything that you've seen from him on the field, he looks the part of a franchise quarterback. He doesn't look like he's overwhelmed in any particular situation. He's got a strong arm. He's got plenty of zip on his throws, whether it's something deep down the field, whether it's across the middle, or even on those short throws to Amari Rodgers. He's not afraid to take those shots down the field. He had success with Cornell Powell this past year throwing it deep, as well as Amari Rodgers. And he's played with some good receivers over the course of his career there. But I think the expectation here is, yes, for him to go first overall. He's going to have, I think, an immediate impact in the game of football. And I think for the Jacksonville Jaguars as well. I know that sounds crazy, but again, there's really good offensive players there for him to be successful. And I just think with him, he seems to have a high football IQ, and I think he'll be able to come in and grasp multiple concepts and be a focal point for a franchise and everything that they want to do. He will be a cornerstone, and I think that's similar to the sense of what Andrew Luck was for the Indianapolis Colts. He just couldn't stay healthy. Obviously, if health becomes a concern, then it'll be a different conversation. But as of right now, I know he had the off-season shoulder surgery and all that stuff, but I think he's gonna be just fine. And I think he's falling into a really good spot in Jacksonville, and I think it's gonna be a lot of fun to watch that team.
Yeah, and I think with Trevor Lawrence, this guy's been a franchise quarterback since he's 14. Right, I remember seeing him on the Elite 11. That's a national television show, and the guy just carries himself well. He won the Elite 11. I think he was like 16 years old or something like that. But I worry about, are the expectations unrealistic? It's almost like LaShawn McCoy recently said it about Pat Mahomes and Josh Allen doing the throwing competition, right? Pat Mahomes has no reason to do that because he's going to lose either way. If he wins, it's like, okay, well, yeah, he's supposed to win. But if he loses, it's like, well...
he's not as good as we thought he was. Right.
It makes him look bad, right? Exactly. And I think that's some of the stuff with Trevor Lawrence is the expectations are almost too high where it's like it's almost impossible to meet them forever, And I think Andrew Luck probably had a little bit of that
too,
as well.
Trevor Lawrence, and I know we'll get into the next question and everything else, but I think with Trevor Lawrence too is he's had these expectations wherever he goes, and he didn't win a Heisman Trophy, but he won a national championship. He got Clemson into the limelight that they are in, where they're this national powerhouse in a sense. One of the only teams that could have competed with Alabama, and a lot of that is because of Trevor Lawrence. And sure, they've had great defensive players like Farrell and Wilkins and yada yada, but at the end of the day, Trevor Lawrence, it matters about the quarterback. And if any fan base knows about that, I'm a Lions fan. I know well about having a good quarterback. Bills fans should know about it from the days of J.P. Lossman, Trent Edwards.
Oh yeah, we're learning. Yeah, we're still learning. We got an MVP type quarterback now. It really does change the entire organization.
It's changed everything, and I think that's what you look at Jacksonville, Blake Bortles, Gardner Minshew, Mike Glennon. The quarterbacks in recent memory there, Blaine Gabbert they've not been good. You get a guy like Trevor Lawrence again. I think it alters the franchise. And yes, the expectations will be high. They should be high. And that's what happens when you win, like you mentioned, a competition at 11 years old against some of the best quarterbacks in the country. Yeah, there's going to be an expectation on you, and if you don't meet it, you might fail. But I think he's gonna do fine.
That's good to know because not a lot of people are talking about him. They're just assuming he's going to be great. Anyway, let's move on here. Next one, staying with the quarterbacks. There'll be 4 quarterbacks taken in the first 6 or 7 picks of the draft. Take it to the bank, and that's reported by Adam Schefter on NFL Live.
I didn't see the episode of NFL Live, and I'm sure he tweeted about it, but I can't see those either because I'm blocked by Adam Schefter on Twitter. Those were the younger days, probably where I called him out for something that was inaccurate or just being an idiotic Lions fan that I am. But to the question, I think that's fact. I think we're going to see 4 quarterbacks within question the top 10. But the first 6 or 7 picks, I think so. I think Detroit's the true wild card there. They could trade out of that spot. They could very well be taking a quarterback. They let go of Chase Daniel. They only have one quarterback on the roster right now, and that's Jared Goff. So I don't think they're going to sign somebody in free agency. Maybe they wait till later in the draft to do that, but you're talking Trevor Lawrence at 1. All signs have pointed to the Jets getting a different quarterback, whether that's Fields or Wilson, we don't know. Atlanta's a bit of a wild card. I would assume they're not going to take a quarterback just simply because they've restructured Matt Ryan's deal, and it just, to me, it seems like they might want to try to win in this window now that they have with Matt Ryan, whatever's left of it. But again, teams are going to move around. San Francisco, Carolina, Detroit, all 3 of those teams could be in the market for a quarterback. Carolina especially, they've had a lot of interest in the quarterback. So, I think we're going to see 4 quarterbacks go in the top 7.
Yeah, and that's something we mentioned on our live show Tuesday night was, Deshaun Watson has a really high probability of ending up in Miami. And they could take quarterback at 3, so you could have 1, 2, and 3. Debatable. I like Zach Wilson as behind Lawrence. When I watch the film, I only watch about 3 games, but so sample size is low. But there's so many wild plays with him. I really enjoy that. And Trey Lance, I want to touch on real quick because this is the prime example of how COVID's really impacted the season. The guy only has just a few games on film, correct? And it's Division II football. And took a year off, but the athleticism is there. Do you think he's a first-round guy? Do you think he falls just because of the what you have to work with is so difficult to get an evaluation? It's
interesting with Trey Lance, and that's the question that gets brought up on a radio show that I'm on all the time, or on my own podcast. We talk about it, doing the draft stuff over at Cover One. But I think the sample size is enough. I know it's only 17 games, but Mac Jones only played 17 games. I think that's equivalent to, what he's capable of doing, and I think that's equivalent to what Mac Jones can do. I think They're very similar in that sense that, yeah, they might need some time. Both guys might need some time, but the ceiling is relatively high for both players. And with Trey Lance, I mean, at 6'4", 220, the guy will look to run guys over like a running back. I mean, he will truck linebackers. And beyond that, the ball flies out of his hands. He does a really good job getting the ball deep down the field. It's not always accurate. He could improve on some of the accuracy, but he can make the throw to all three levels of the field. Again, I think he operates very well off script. I think he's able to be utilized with his mobility on design quarterback runs. But the biggest thing that I noticed with Trey Lance throughout the course of his career, and I think I watched a total of, it had to have been 10 or 11 games, because they have Cordell Volson, the right tackle, who I think is going to move inside to guard. He could be in this year's draft because he's playing this spring and he could technically still declare, but he technically will probably go next year. Dylan Ray-Dunes, who was at the Senior Bowl, and then Christian Watson, their wide receiver. So they've got 4 draftable players on offense, Trey Lance obviously being the top guy. But what I noticed with him was that he was so fluid at the line of scrimmage, being able to audible in and out of things and being able to diagnose the defense in front of him. And that play recognition there and those adjustments is key, because this is a guy that at a young age was able to do that within an offense that didn't just run out of a spread formation. I mean, they came out in I formation. They came out of a single back, offset I. I mean, you're seeing stuff with 11 personnel, empty sets, all kinds of different variations, and he's able to do that at 19 years of age. Now, all offseason, he's worked with Quincy Avery, a great quarterback coach that worked with Deshaun Watson, and Paul Alexander, who's I believe a 15-year NFL offensive line coach. Either way, he's a phenomenal offensive line coach, and he's been working with him on doing line adjustments and how to, again, pick up defenses, how to read the defenses, and I think that's key. So I love Trey Lance. I think the upside is incredibly high for him. I think he's a top 15 pick in this draft. I think he's got a top 15 grade from probably just about any evaluator you talk to, and I think he's worthy of it. So I love Trey Lance.
And that's good news for Bills fans, because now you're talking possibly 5 quarterbacks, before pick 30. All that other talent gets pushed back for that reason. I mean, and it pushes things the Bills need back to them.
Yes.
So I like that. I like what you're saying there. So let's move on to some Bills stuff here. Here's another fact or fiction. If the Bills were to trade up for a guard, it would be Aljia Vera-Tucker and nobody else. You think that's worthy?
I'll say, I want to throw a fiction out there because I've said fact every time, but I'm going to say fact for the simple fact of, I mean, my top interior offensive lineman is Rashawn Slater, and then it's Aljia Vera-Tucker. So that makes sense to me. I think it's a bold move to move up to do that. Because you could stay at 30, you could potentially move out of 30 if a team maybe is interested in moving up for a tight end or a cornerback or something like that, or an edge rusher. Maybe,
right.
Yeah, and we'll get into that, right? But I think with that, you could move back, and then you could look at another guard like a Wyatt Davis out of Ohio State, who I think is a fairly nice compliment, or a complimentary prize, I should say, or a consolation prize within this draft to play at right guard and kind of be a plug-and-play type of guy. 2 years ago, he was fantastic. Going into the summer, he was a top 15, top 20 type of player from everybody that you talk to, and he just didn't have necessarily the year that you were expecting him to have this year. And I think, again, COVID played a big part. The Big Ten and their poor scheduling of the season also played a part in that. So I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt. I want to say fact. I'm going to go fiction, just simply because I think that's a little dicey if you move up on draft day to move up and get a guard in the first round. I just think that's dicey. I love Aljia Vera-Tucker, and that's what makes it so difficult, because I love the player. I still just think it's risky in the sense of giving up future assets to move up to get a guard when you could have stayed at 30 and got just as quality of a guard with Wyatt Davis, or even potentially moving back and doing the same thing.
So you think the gap's a little bit more narrow than people are saying? you look at a lot of these rankings, I think Vera-Tucker's alone way up in top 15. The other guys are around early second round, late first
and I mean,
round.
and that's what makes it so tough is there is a bit of a gap. I mean, I'm not going to lie, there is a bit of a gap, but it's a rarity to see a team move up for a guard. I mean, it's a position that doesn't get the praise that it should. Offensive linemen don't get the praise that it should, and it's not like you're moving up for a franchise-altering left tackle or a franchise left tackle. You're moving up for a guard. I mean, because I doubt you're moving Deion Dawkins inside. You're going to play Vera-Tucker at right tackle, right guard, left guard. I mean, he brings you versatility. But if honestly, if they were going to consider playing anybody or doing anything like that, just take Dylan Ray-Dunes out of North Dakota State. He's a Buffalo Bills type of player. You can develop him. He's got to get stronger, but just bring him in and he, because at the Senior Bowl he played all 5 positions. He can play any position you put him at, and I think that's.
And they love versatility.
Yeah, I'd stay at 30 and just bring in Dylan Ray-Dunes.
Yeah, and the reason I bring up guard is because one thing you can look at this Bills team and say they need to improve, and that is definitely the run game, right? And I don't think the running backs, I mean, they're okay. They're not over the top or anything like that. But I think you can look at the offensive line, even with the re-signings of Feliciano and Darrell Williams at right tackle. There's opportunity to get better at guard. And you look across the entire roster, that's one that jumps out. So that's why I asked that. But let's move on to another position that needs some improvement, and I think that's going to be edge. So the next one is arguably the Bills' top need is edge player. They will need to trade up to get an immediate impact player. So meaning they will not be able to get one at 30. They're going to have to get up to get one that can come in and play immediately.
Fiction. I'm going to say fiction there. For the fact that I love Kwity Paye and Azeez Ojulari out of Georgia. I think those are the top 2 edge rushers in this draft. But they could stay there at 30, and they could very well see a Gregory Rousseau out of Miami, Florida, a Jason Owuah out of Penn State, a Jalen Phillips out of Miami, Florida. I think there's some really valuable edge rushers that just you don't necessarily know exactly what they're going to be because of maybe only 1 year of production, or they opted out this year, like Greg Rousseau. But Rousseau brings you versatility. He can play as a zero shade, as a 1 technique. He can play as a 5. He can stand up at 6'6", 260. He can really do anything, and he's got great length. So I think with him, he could be the first edge rusher off the board. He might not be, but I guess the question that I have is how far are we talking moving up?
Well, I think the Bills are in a position, again, they re-signed a lot of the players. I mean, a lot of the needs were filled, right? So they could, I don't think they would trade away future picks, but if there's a guy maybe 5 to 10 picks up, I think they could take a shot at him.
If that's
and maybe take some of the later picks and go up and get somebody who could play right away. Another thing, they like straightforward defensive ends, right? They didn't draft Jerry Hughes. Right, they got AJ Epinesa, who's really not. He can't really bend. He's a straightforward guy. Mario Addison. So I mean, Kwity Paye's probably their guy, but I mean, he's high on a lot of lists. So it's again a tough year because a guy like Greg Rousseau, not a lot of film out there. You're kind of going on the athleticism. He's played 3 different positions in the last 4 years.
But if you're looking for somebody that's similar to the build of like a Jerry Hughes, that would be Ronnie Perkins out of Oklahoma, 6'3", 247, explosive out of his stance, a guy that can translate speed to power, really can utilize a long arm, but he's got good burst, got pretty decent bend. But if we're talking just really off the threshold of the Bills, because the average that they have off the edge is more so like 6'5", 260, 6'5", 270, somewhere in that range. They like him a little bit bulkier. I mean, AJ Epinesa is a prime example. So if that's the case, look at guys like Patrick Jones out of Pittsburgh and my guy Rashad Weaver out of Pittsburgh. Rashad Weaver fits that to a T. He had 43 pressures in college football this past year, which was 3rd most in college football. And it was after he tore his ACL in 2019. So he had the best year of his college career after tearing his ACL. He's got great length. He's got a pretty good get off. Not as athletic as you'd want somebody to be. He's not as athletic as some of those edge rushers I listed as before. But again, if you're sitting at 30 and he's your guy, I think you could take him. So I'm still gonna stick with fiction on that. So I could throw names at you all day long, but if for Bills fans out there, circle the Pittsburgh guys, just simply because schematically, what Pittsburgh does is very similar to what the Buffalo Bills do. So I think from a scheme perspective, Rashad Weaver and Patrick Jones really fit what Buffalo needs.
Yeah, that's good to know because I've been all in on these Miami guys. I like the versatility, so I'll definitely check out the Pittsburgh guys and get back to you. All right, let's move on to the next one. The top cornerbacks for the Bills as far as scheme are Greg Newsome, the second, and Eric Stokes. They're two guys who could be there in 30. Is that fact or fiction? Is there other corners that could fit this scheme that are projected first-round
I'm going
to
say fact for the sake of both of them being there. I think they both could very well be there, but I really like Eric Stokes. I'm not going to lie. I think he is somebody that's just a physical press man type of corner, and I think he would be a good fit opposite of Trey White. I don't think you necessarily need to get somebody that plays similarly to Trey White. I think Stokes could be that guy. Now, he's been having a great offseason. Everything has been checking out. He's got really good length. That popped on tape, but it's checking out with
4.2 speed.
Yeah, running a 4.2. So he might. Both these guys have had great off seasons. Greg Newsome as well. He ran in the 4.3s at his pro day with Northwestern. So again, both guys could be gone. But I think realistically, with so much offensive talent in this draft, they might get pushed down the board, and realistically, they could be there. I think both are fits, but I would have to say Eric Stokes would be the best fit, because I think you need to get a physical presence on the outside. I think you need to be able to, even if it's locking up the number 2 receiver, if you can lock him up physically, and then you have a guy that is strong as a run defender as Eric Stokes, I think that is key. And he has no issues whatsoever coming up in run support. He's physical. He will lay the hammer on somebody, and he can blitz off the edge as well. So I think he brings a bit of a dynamic playmaking ability on the outside, whether it is making interceptions and pass deflections or coming up and just blitzing the quarterback. It's almost like having an extra edge rusher at corner. So I like Stokes Jr. a lot at 30. I think I like him more than Greg Newsome, but I haven't watched Newsome a ton in depth to give that thought. But just I was all about Eric Stokes in the summer, so I got to go with my boy.
Yeah, the fact that he said he's physical and he can defend the run well, that's huge because we've had Levi Wallace in that position for the last 3-4 years. And one of his weaknesses was stepping up and stopping the run, and he would get targeted in games, and sometimes it got kind of ugly. He held his own pretty good. I think he got better every year. But this is why this is intriguing, because we've been kind of going with Levi Wallace, who's an undrafted guy, and then savvy veteran with him, together. So taking a first-round guy with the physical ability is really going to, I think, do wonders for the secondary as long as everything works out.
I've been saying it.
It's good to hear that he is a physical player.
Yeah, I've been saying it all year for Bills fans. I wrote an article in September about the Bills possibly looking at an upgrade through trade or free agency. I don't remember what players I had listed. They were 2 free agents, but I have felt like getting another cornerback opposite of Trey White for the Bills is very key. Don't do what the Lions did with Darius Slay. Don't leave this guy on an island in the secondary. Get him some help and some support on the other side of him, and it will make your defense more complete and well-rounded. And I think getting a guy at 30 makes the most sense. I think that is, without question for me, the top need for that team going into April's draft in the first round.
All right, yeah, perfect. And I got one more for you. You have tasted kneecap in your lifetime. If nobody knows what I'm talking about, Dan Cambell, the new coach for the Lions, came out and said we're going to bite kneecaps. Detroit Lion guy. You live in Detroit, correct? In Detroit, so huge Lions fan. So, what do you think about the Lions? You like these new moves? You like Jared Goff?
Yeah, so the press conference was an interesting one. Tasting kneecaps and taking out kneecaps, yada, yada, yada. I think is a very, very interesting way of doing a press conference, not going to lie. But I like the the aggression. I like the fired up mentality that Dan Cambell brings, and really since he got here, it's been truly a breath of fresh air. And you could see it the moment Matt Patricia and Bob Quinn were fired back in late November, early December. You could, like, I remember watching the press conferences of the players a few days after that and seeing guys like Matt Stafford smiling and all that. So me as a fan, like, being able to have that, I've always been interested, but having like that kind of sense of, wow, we got rid of kind of the dead weight that was here and we got something new. It's exciting. And all the moves that the Lions have been making have been exactly up to par of what I have wanted them to be doing. I thought they needed to trade Matthew Stafford. It was time. I was tired of watching him drop back to throw and get absolutely decimated. And like, I felt like I was in The Lion King, like, you know, Simba was like pushing on his dad, like, get up, you know, like it was like every time I was worried he wasn't going to get up. And so they get rid of him, and yeah, they get Jared Goff, but the key is they got 2 first-round picks out of that. I mean, that's amazing to get Stafford's contract gone, to get Jared Goff and his bad contract, sure, but I mean, to do it, he's a 2-year rental. I love it. And then just getting rid of the players that they have. Justin Coleman, who hasn't been healthy since he arrived in Detroit. He really only played, I think, a total of 10 games. Getting rid of Danny Shelton, getting rid of the countless guys, of not paying Kenny Golladay, Marvin Jones, like hitting the reset button in such a deep wide receiver draft. It could open the door for a player like Jamar Chase at 7 if they don't go quarterback.
Right. Hawkinson's a bright player. I was really high on him when the Bills were picking at 9.
And then just what they've done in free agency. I mean, I don't love the Tyrell Williams signing. I would have much rather taken somebody like John Brown or something like that for a year, but or even Emmanuel Sanders for that sake. But I like what they're doing. Jamal Williams, I love that signing. It's a great compliment to DeAndre Swift. I think Kerryon Johnson was a bad draft pick, and I will always say that. So no, I'm excited to get Michael Brockers for a 7th round pick for next year or 2023 or something like that. Like, that's just that's insane to me. And this guy, like Brad Holmes, is just showing like he might he's been ready for this job, and he's doing a great job. So it's exciting. They're not going out and getting a bunch of former players that the coaches used to coach or play with or whatever. Like, they're getting the right guys that fit to help build something new, and the draft will be what defines them ultimately, and I'm excited to see what they do. I have no idea what they're going to do. I mean, they truly are the wild card, I think, in this top 10, so we'll see.
Yeah, the ball's certainly in their court. I mean, they're in a position where, you know, if these quarterbacks do go early, talent gets pushed back, right? We saw that with Bradley Chubb to the Broncos. I mean, I think the Lions are in a good position where they're at. And like you said, just got to hit on those draft picks. So, Russell, thanks for joining us. You know, maybe tell listeners where they can find you, catch up on your content.
I appreciate you guys joining me, or having me on. But anytime you want me to hop on, let me know. I'm happy to do draft stuff anytime and talk Bills. But yeah, you can find me on Twitter at Russ NFL Draft. Be sure to smash the follow button and find me for all that video breakdowns I do, or making fun of myself, or making fun of the Lions, or whatever it is. But yeah, find me on Twitter.
Perfect. Yeah, I think we could all maybe pick on Matt Patricia together. That could be a fun activity.
Yeah, I mean, he's in New England now, so we can all do it.
Exactly. So back in our court. So again, thank you, and we'll see you Tuesday night for the Hoof Live. And as always, check out the Hoof Podcast on Fridays. We'll see you next week.